Hello, my name is Brian Wesley Johnson, and I'm the CEO and publisher of Soulivity.com. Looking ahead to editorial discussions that are of great importance to all of you, our readers and listeners, we have created an ongoing special editorial feature section dedicated to assessing health access and the lack of equity facing the majority of Americans. Special editorial commitment is part of a growing discussion which focuses on challenges and solutions facing communities across the United States. Soulivity will spotlight widely known health inequities, the critical importance of broadening health research, valuable guidance and insights from renowned health professionals, and the accredited resources necessary to empower and mobilize our highly connected and socially active audiences. And we're looking forward to providing you even more empowered content in the near future.
Welcome in the RKD community. Welcome to Nephcure's follow-up conversation to our first annual APOL1 Town Hall that happened early this year in April. We're excited to add this town hall to great cause to not only spread awareness, but educate all those that joined the first one on some not only updated findings, but also different perspectives. We have with us some new faces and some that are familiar. Our great board member, Reverend Miles, will be speaking of Enon Tabernacle, which is a great partner in Nephcure. We'll have Dr. Crenshaw, who is an amazing, groundbreaking, and celebrated doctor in the world of RKD, and especially APOL1. And also, as it happens, health equity. We also have a great genetic counselor by the name of Barbara Harrison, who is new to our network, but we're going to be calling on all the time and annoying, so hopefully she doesn't leave us. And also a very familiar face, a patient, an amazing advocate, and successful in his own right, Jordan Albright, who will be giving a presentation in regards to his experience with APOL1 as well as health equity. So tonight's lineup will go as such. I'll start out. My name is Montrez Lucas. I'm currently the Associate Director of Patient Navigation here at Nephcure. And we'll start out with Reverend Miles, who will be our Master of Ceremony. And then we'll head into the presentations of each others. And then at the last 10 minutes, we'll go into a question and answer period where you can pose questions in our chat. And our staff, we're almost like staff, aren't we? We worked together the last 2 days at the Congressional Black Caucus. Our panelists will go into answer those questions that you pose in the question and answer portion for the last 10 minutes. So gear up, buckle up. I'm excited to first introduce Reverend Miles, an amazing board member and leader in health equity, and one of the leaders of the amazing Enon Tabernacle. Welcome, Reverend Miles.
Well, thank you. So great to be here with you. And you're right, it has been a full day as we are at the Congressional Black Caucus advocating in this space and super excited, as I said. So I am a staff pastor at Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church in Philadelphia, and I'll serve as your moderator for this panel. And what we bring to this conversation is creativity in the genetic testing and the screening realm. We encountered Nephcure several years ago, and it came, and what encouraged me to work with them, why I was encouraged to work with them, is because they were willing to go upstream. I'm frustrated like many of you, and I share it every opportunity I get with the number of dialysis centers in our community and the number of persons of color that I know who are on transplant lists as it relates to kidney disease. And so happy to be here with you, certainly looking forward to having an engaging conversation. And next slide. And just sharing, I don't want to be redundant, but just really want to drill down on who Nephcure is and why they do what they do and what makes them so special. And it's just, and you can see the mission statement here is a patient advocacy organization. And that is so true. As we go throughout the evening, you'll hear more and more about the advocacy work and collaboration. And it goes on and it talks about empowering people with rare protein spilling kidney disease. Again, testing, a conversation. And we thank Dr. Crenshaw on the front end. Next slide, please. Who we serve. And, you know, as we had this panel earlier today, I said, you know what, we won't even go into a lot of the definitions, but again, understanding it's the protein spilling kidney disease. And we're going to lean in on our professionals. We have two subject matter experts and again, a patient advocate to come alongside. So next slide, please. How we serve. And this is, again, what attracted me to Nephcure in the very first place. So it is around diagnosis, which is so key, and then providing care in a very creative way, understanding because we're doing screening and it's my prayer and my expectation that every patient, when they go to see their primary, that they would have a urinalysis and have their urine checked for protein, which is the lower protein. And then lastly, they're in the business of saving kidneys. Often in kidney disease, it sneaks up on us. Again, it's not, you know, we know that we call heart disease the silent killer, but usually by the time we're dealing with kidneys, it's because we're pretty far down the road. So next slide, please. And this is how we serve, again, with collaboration. And I think that's, again, what makes Nephcure so special. Not only are they at the tip of the spear in terms of research, working with clinicians, always having their fingers on the pulse of what's going on in the industry, advocating and lobbying as it relates to governmental affairs, but all while doing this all while patient focused. So again, we appreciate Nephcure. Next slide, please. And I said it earlier, I'll say it again. At times, I feel like a corpse at a funeral. And what do I mean by that? You expect me to be here, and I will be here for the duration of this panel, but you don't want to hear much from me. And so again, we appreciate the experts. We appreciate the subject matter experts. And so it's with pleasure and honor that I introduce to you Daryl Crenshaw. He's a native of Selma, Alabama, board certified internal medicine and nephrology. You can see the degrees for yourself, but he's extremely credentialed and has taken the time at every level to get the type of education that's needed to do the work that he's doing. In his current role as a practicing nephrologist in Thomasville, Georgia, the first African-American chief of staff, will honor him there at the John Archbishop Memorial Hospital and chair of hospital board of trustees. So important. Serves in dual roles, not only as a practitioner, but also as an educator, shaping minds and progressing. And then lastly, those two pieces, an advocate as well as a researcher. Loves God, understands community engagement and how to be effective. The next voice you'll hear is that of Dr. Crenshaw. Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Crenshaw. Also, Reverend Miles, I'm not gonna lie. When we were at the Congressional Black Caucus this afternoon, and you said that analogy about being a corpse, I was scared. I was like, "Where are we going?" But you tied in really well. Dr. Crenshaw, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Miles. Thank you, Montrez, and good evening, everyone. For the next few moments, I would like to talk about this unfortunate yet unequal burden of kidney disease on Black Americans in this country. Next slide. And so for our agenda tonight, we'd like to overview kidney disease, reviewing the clinical impact of kidney disease, discussing the psychological effects, along with the economic impact and the genetic risk factors for kidney disease in Blacks in the United States. I also like to discuss the importance of genetic testing, and then lastly, discuss goals for screening and awareness for Blacks in kidney disease. Next slide. And so when we look at the overview of kidney disease, we recognize, unfortunately, that chronic kidney disease is a nationwide epidemic affecting 1 in 7 individuals in the United States. That's roughly about 40 million individuals in this country. And also, unfortunately, Black Americans account for 32% of kidney failure in the US, and also are 4 times more likely to develop kidney failure than white Americans in this country. And so to put this in perspective, you have to understand that Blacks in this country only comprise about 13% of the US population. Yet 35% of all dialysis patients that are present are people of color. And so we see this tremendous disproportionate African Americans of kidney disease in this country. Now, when we look at the clinical impact of kidney disease in Blacks, we recognize that hypertension and diabetes make up the majority of kidney disease in Blacks in this country. But bear in mind that there are other causes of chronic kidney disease in Blacks as well, including lupus, glomerular disease, one in particular known as focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. This is the most common glomerular disease in Blacks. But now we're paying more close attention to genetic causes of kidney disease, including polycystic kidney disease, and a very unique disease that we're going to discuss momentarily known as APOL1 mediated kidney disease. Now, these 2 charts here I'd like to highlight briefly. Number one, you can see to the left this stage of chronic kidney disease. I want everyone to be aware of this, to understand that there are 5 different stages of kidney disease. Stage 1 is when the kidney functions is essentially normal. Stage 2, this is when there is mild loss of kidney disease. Stage 3, this is when individuals should be under the care of a certified nephrologist. This is when you start seeing mild to moderate kidney dysfunction. Stage 4, this is when the kidney function is very severe. And unfortunately, when you reach stage 5, this is when an individual is classified as end-stage kidney disease. These are the individuals that have kidney function less than 15%. So the slide to the right, showing the warning signs of kidney failure. I just want everyone just to kind of know some of the typical warning signs. This includes extreme fatigue, nausea and vomiting. Sometimes people can have confusion or trouble having levels of concentration appropriately. You can also see swelling, particularly in the hands and ankles. And then lastly, you can also get a poor appetite and have a metallic taste. These are some of the general signs of early kidney failure. Next slide. I like to highlight this slide because this slide shows the CKD or chronic kidney disease diagnostic inequity that's impacted by states. And so if you can look here at the southern part of the United States, highlighted in the lighter colors, you can see here that these individuals have a significant amount of diagnostic inequity. What that means is that chronic kidney disease is underdiagnosed, particularly in people of color in the US. And unfortunately, in these same states, we see that they have a higher risk, up to a 14% higher risk of kidney disease in the southeastern part of the United States. Also, you can see here that the lighter colors are actually trending up even towards more the northeastern part, even as far as the Virginia, DC, and Maryland area, where you're truly seeing this diagnostic inequity. Next slide. And as a consequence of this diagnostic inequity, unfortunately, we see a similar burden of high death rate from kidney disease. And so tremendous recognition needs to be played here, because we recognize that with this significant amount of high death rate, truly validating that there's a CKD diagnostic inequity around the country, in particular in the southeastern part of the United States. Next slide. I'd like to highlight here some of the psychological impact of kidney disease. We understand that there was this study that revealed within 1,000 patients who had kidney disease, 67% of this 1,000 experienced symptoms of depression. 36% could not take care of themselves due to mental health problems. An additional 27% contemplated self-harm or suicide. Up to 68% were not offered mental health support. Again, showing this diagnostic and healthcare inequity that we see in our country. and an additional 53% admitting they find it hard to speak up about their mental health. I want to highlight this because as a practicing nephrologist, I see similar numbers in my patient population. Many of these patients are depressed. Unfortunately, many of them cannot take care of themselves. About a quarter of them definitely have self-harm and contemplate suicide, again, showing the psychological impact when it comes to kidney disease.
And we'll be back with our Soulivity Today special in just a moment.
Ready to embark on a wine-filled adventure? Go to oldvinewinetours.com and book your luxury wine tour today and experience the unparalleled beauty and flavors of Sonoma, Napa, and Lake counties. oldvinewinetours.com offers transportation for the most amazing experiences in the Sonoma Valley, Santa Rosa, Healdsburg, and all of Sonoma County, as well as the Napa Valley and Clear Lake wineries of Lake County. From boutique tastings to bridal party transportation, we have you covered. Visit oldvinewinetours.com or call 707-386-9859 for more information. Don't forget to mention promo code Soulivity to get 10% off either a culture or wine tour. Book your wine country adventure. Visit oldvinewinetours.com or call 707-386-9859 today.
Addiction is an epidemic. Millions are struggling and over 100 lives are lost each day. Are you next? At Better Addiction Care, we understand the devastating impact of drug and alcohol addiction. Our network of treatment centers are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's time to fix the pieces addiction has destroyed. Our network of treatment centers offer detox, therapy, counseling, private luxurious centers, physical fitness, chef-prepared meals, aftercare, and your insurance may cover up to 100% of costs. Only you can put an end to your addiction. It's time to make the life-changing call and get the help you need. Call now, and in just minutes, you could be on your way to a drug and alcohol-free life. The call is free and confidential, and there is no obligation. Visit betteraddictioncare.com or call
855-246-4024. That's 855-246-4024.
What we're revealing now is that due to this diagnostic inequity and recognition that for the last half century, this disproportionate number of African Americans being on dialysis, it was always recognized that this was attributed to diabetes and hypertension alone. What we have come to find out now is that there literally is a third cog in this wheel, and that cog is known as APOL1. For those who don't know, APOL1 is a very common gene that every individual in this world has. We all have two copies. We have one copy from our mother and one copy from our father. But what's unique, and particularly in individuals who reside in sub-Saharan Africa, this gene actually in its mutated form has a very unique benefit in protecting a trypanosome called African sleep sickness in sub-Saharan Africa. And meanwhile, once this gene is mutated and has these what we call high-risk allele variations, when that gene gets over into the Western world and due to other environmental factors, there is this risk for developing APOL1-mediated kidney disease as a result. And so there's a 20% chance that if you have two high-risk allele involvement, there's a relationship that you can develop chronic kidney disease. The reason why this is important is because people of color who have been misattributed to having hypertension as a cause of their kidney disease, now we recognize that realistically, the major factor now may be APOL1-mediated kidney disease. And so what has happened now is that we have the test to be able to test for this actual gene variation. And it involves a swab of the cheek. But we can also test, as you can see here, by looking for protein in the urine. We can also look for a rise in the serum creatinine. We can also look for clinical presence of kidney disease. And we can also get an abnormal kidney ultrasound to validate if someone qualifies to be tested for APOL1-mediated kidney disease. And so when we test for APOL1, we check the urine, particularly for protein. And we also do an oral swab for APOL1 testing, and we can also get blood data to further validate if an individual is at high risk for developing kidney disease from APOL1 mediated kidney disease. Next slide. And so I'd like to close this talk with the understanding that it indeed takes a village to take care and mitigate the spread of kidney disease in this country, particularly amongst African Americans. One of my biggest passions is doing community awareness and screening events, because I understand, as you're going to hear today, that it doesn't take just the practitioner or the physician, but it also requires men of God and leaders like Reverend Miles, and like you're going to hear next in Barbara Harrison, who's an expert in genetics. And you're going to hear a phenomenal testimony from Mr. Jordan Albright. But it takes everyone involved for us to hopefully mitigate the spread of kidney disease and to reduce the unequal burden of kidney disease in this country. Thank you.
And we'll be back with our Soulivity Today special in just a moment.
The following is a paid advertisement from Premium Weight Loss Peptides.
Welcome to Premium Weight Loss Peptides, your source for compounded semaglutide weight loss medication. At Control Your Weight today, we offer the same active ingredients as FDA-approved drugs like Wegovy and Ozempic, but conveniently dispensed as a dissolvable under the tongue. No more injections, no more pills to swallow. And with our monthly membership, your medication, shipping, and telehealth-related weight loss services are all included.
The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The efficacy of these products has not been confirmed by FDA-approved research. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Start your weight loss journey today. Visit us at controlyourweight.today or scan the QR code.
What if you could make a free phone call and reduce your car payment by as much as $83 a month? Right now, you could be paying as high as 20% interest. Your new interest rate could be reduced to as low as 2.48%. You can refinance any existing car loan or leased car and save money every month. Take 5 minutes of your time right now. Make this free phone call and learn how to save hundreds of dollars a year by refinancing your existing car loan.
Dial 877-511-7277 now. That's 877-511-7277.
And we transition now to a fast friend. We share Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania together, Barbara Harrison. She is a DC native, but spent doing some of her graduate work with a master's degree in genetic counseling from the University of Pennsylvania. In her current role, assistant professor of Howard University College of Medicine, assistant director of community outreach and education at the Howard University Center for Sickle Cell Disease. We appreciate her over 3 decades of work as a genetic counselor at the university, covering a wide range of indications. And again, we appreciate that she understands her role and is dedicated to advancing diversity and inclusion in genetic counseling, something that we don't talk enough about in our community. But because of who you are, we appreciate what you're going to share, and it does allow us to trust in ways in which we have not trusted in a mighty long time. So, Barbara Harrison, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So welcome to everyone out there. And definitely thank you to Nephcure for welcoming me into the family. So I am excited to talk to you today about genetic counseling, a little about genetics and also testing in APOL1 mediated kidney disease. Just very quickly, I always have to say I'm representing myself, not officially Howard University, although I've been at Howard for many, many years. And so this definitely has informed many of my views and my thoughts as I've talked to patients over the years. So you can go to the next slide. So I'm sure some of you out there might be wondering what in the world is genetic counseling, because I always like to provide just some insight into that question. So essentially, genetic counselors are medical professionals, and we are specially trained in genetics and in all these new technologies that are becoming more and more a part of our everyday medical care. In addition, we have not only that technical knowledge, that scientific knowledge, but we also are trained to have particular sensitivity to the effects that this type of information can have on an individual and on a family. And so if you think about people with genetic conditions and even the things that Dr. Crenshaw spoke about specifically with kidney disease and some of those feelings of depression and mental health issues and kind of that impact that disease can have in general, that can be kind of have a ripple effect. You want to say it that way when you deal with genetic conditions, because often the information that is learned not only affects that person, but then has implications for other people in the family, and how they receive that information and kind of process that information can be variable, and can just be helpful to have someone around who, truly understands that and is empathetic to that. So genetic counselors do all the things I have here in these circles, including identifying treatments and management, providing answers to families about why certain conditions are happening. But I'm going to focus on those three kind of yellow outline circles today, including talking about finding a genetic testing laboratory to do the testing, connecting individuals to organizations like Nephcure, cascade testing, which is kind of the term we use when we talk about the fact that if someone has a particular gene, then there's, a likelihood that others in that same family share those genes and may benefit from testing as well. So if you go to the next slide, I'll kind of talk through these a little bit more. So one of the first steps, after kind of getting to know an individual when I'm meeting with them for genetic counseling, is to provide some education. And so I'm going to just do that very briefly here as we talk about this APOL1 gene. So as Dr. Crenshaw has already delineated for us, we obviously we get our genetic information from that egg and sperm. And for every gene that we have, we get one copy or one variation of that from that egg and one copy or variation of that from the sperm. And for every gene, there's going to be different variations of a gene. And I'll use an analogy of eye color. So if I simplified eye color and said that it was only due to one gene, then you could envision that there's a blue eye gene, there's a brown eye gene, there's a hazel eye gene, brown eye gene. And so those variations within that same eye color gene are fine. They're not causing a problem. They just lead to the beautiful diversity that we see amongst us, kind of amongst humankind. However, there are some variations of a gene that may be problematic or may be associated with the disease. And so if we come back now to APOL1, we can imagine that there are variations of this gene that are fine and don't cause a problem, but there are other variations of this gene that, if inherited, could cause a problem and lead to an increased risk of kidney disease. Now, specifically with this APOL1, you actually have to inherit one of those high risk, variations of that gene from both parents. So if you get it from that egg and you get it from the sperm, then that person has this increased risk for kidney disease. Now, what that also means is that all the full siblings of that individual also have a 25% chance to also have inherited those two high-risk variations of that gene. And so again, this type of testing not only affects that individual, but it also affects other people in the family. That means that their parents can have at least one copy of it, but other individuals may have two copies of it as well in the family. And so that's where we get to kind of this cascade testing, where we start thinking about, okay, we've identified this one person, who else in the family might also be at risk? And then when we start talking about, okay, let's say we identify those individuals, now what are those risks and benefits of having testing? We think about these in particular, if you have an individual who does not have kidney disease yet. So maybe they know that they have someone in their family who has an APOL1 related kidney disease, and now they're considering whether to get testing. Some of the benefits of that obviously, are they could have more information that can empower themselves to take care of themselves better, to help their healthcare team take care of themselves, take care of that person better. But they may also have some hesitation. Um, some people will have a hesitation because they'll fear that they'll lose their health insurance, or it may have some negative impact in that realm. And the great news around that specific concern is that there is some legislative protections for individuals that are found to have an increased risk based on genetic information. There's a law that is called the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, and it forbids health insurance companies to make decisions about whether or not to cover a person or to set their premiums based on this genetic risk information. So that's something that individuals may not be aware of. That's, a discussion that a genetic counselor can have with them. But there are other kind of social impacts of this type of testing that aren't covered. So if a person is getting life insurance or disability insurance, then this genetic information could be used to set those premiums and so forth. And so sometimes that's a conversation where people will delay testing until they get those insurances in order, or they just may not be in a headspace where they can accept this kind of information and really process it well. And so that can be all part of this informed decision-making process that a genetic counselor is really specifically trained to be able to have and help individuals work through. Now, if a person decides to go ahead and have testing, a big question is always, where do I get that test done? And there are, many genetic testing companies out there, some of which we as clinicians use more often versus ones that you could, look on the internet and send, a saliva sample to X company and they'll give you information back. And so there are pros, mostly pros who like to, of course, do that in the clinical space because we know that we'll get the most reliable information. But for some, in certain circumstances, people may decide they want to do that on their own and not go through a clinician and go through, again, something like on the internet. And sometimes that information can be good, but sometimes it's not. And so being able to have that conversation and work through those options as well can be benefit in the genetic counseling space. Now, something that genetic counselors always do is take family histories. This helps us to identify those other family members who may be at risk and also help guide us as to maybe something else that might be going on in the family. I've come across, as I've learned more about APOL1, we've learned about some of the other effects that this might have on a person's health. There's some information out there that this may lead to an increased risk for something called preeclampsia and pregnancy. If a fetus has carrying these high risk alleles, and it may be multiplied if the mom is as well. And so, we know in our community, maternal mortality is an issue, and maybe this is something that's factoring into it. We don't know. And one of the exciting things I think is that as we get more attention to this gene, we'll get to learn more about it. We'll get some support around research so that we can learn more about what are the effects, not only within kidney disease, but more broadly, that might help us to answer some of these questions as to what has been going on in our community in terms of some of the health disparities and things that we're facing. So genetic counselor would, be able to know about those things and even pluck those types of things, not just who had kidney disease, but maybe who had problems in pregnancy, that type of thing. And then lastly, in this realm, genetic counselors help connect individuals to resources. And Nephcure is a phenomenal example of someone who I certainly would point a patient to for that long-term support, place that they could get the most current information and really provide a sense of community around it and help to remove some of the stigma that can go along with a person having a genetic condition and not wanting to talk about it, not wanting to divulge information to their family members. Sometimes it's just about removing that stigma, making people understand there are others in that same boat. And together we can get much further than, if they're trying to deal with those things alone. You can go to the next slide. So the unfortunate part, though, is that there's a limited number of genetic counselors. I think we're right around 7,000 now, which may sound like a lot, but we're kind of dispersed throughout the country. And we're really in, mostly in more urban areas around your big academic medical centers. And so it can be difficult for people to assess genetic counseling services. Some may depend on telemedicine services, and that's becoming a more available option. But one of the key problems around access is that there is some limited acknowledgement of genetic counselors as licensed medical providers. And this is something that, as genetic counselors, we've been dealing with state by state. We're slowly getting that legislation through where there's genetic counseling licensure in a little over half of the states, but not all states have that. In addition, Medicare and Medicaid do not formally recognize genetic counselors as providers, although they do recognize the service of genetic counseling and the importance of it when making genetic testing decisions. And so we're kind of helping bring them along. Like, if you're understanding what genetic counseling is, we need to get those genetic counselors actually recognized so that we can increase access, so that hospitals don't feel like they're just paying out to a genetic counselor that salary, but not being able to get reimbursement for those services, because that really does have a direct effect on access. And so I just like to end then with the next slide, which just talks about an active bill that's in Congress now in the federal government to change this story, to make genetic counselors, to have CMS, or the Center of Medicaid and Medicare Services, formally recognize genetic counselors as providers. And being able to do this and be able to assist our physician colleagues so they're not burdened with trying to have this conversation. We can have that conversation in a genetic counseling space, which may be a half hour, 40 minutes that I can sit with a patient and talk about this. And, whereas physicians often are pressured with a small amount of time to have to cover a lot of information, that we can be there to assist in those conversations. And so we are happy that organizations like the American Kidney Fund are certainly supportive of this legislation. And so if you're out there, if you're an advocate, please just throw in whatever 2 cents you can to help us out to get this over the finish line. But hopefully I've given you kind of an overview of what genetic counseling is. I am more than happy to answer any questions that folks may have.
And we'll be back with our Soulivity Today special in just a moment.
The following is a paid advertisement from Premium Weight Loss Peptides.
Welcome to Premium Weight Loss Peptides, your source for compounded semaglutide weight loss medication. At Control Your Weight Today, we offer the same active ingredients as FDA-approved drugs like Wegovy and Ozempic, but conveniently dispensed as a dissolvable under the tongue. No more injections, no more pills to swallow. And with our monthly membership, your medication, shipping, and telehealth-related weight loss services are all included.
The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The efficacy of these products has not been confirmed by FDA-approved research. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Start your weight loss journey today. Visit us at controlyourweight.today or scan the QR code.
Are you a business owner looking to expand your reach and revenue to a perfect community? Being a Soulivity Today radio sponsor puts your business in front of hundreds of thousands of customers every week. And it's affordable too. For about the cost of a cup of coffee and snack each day, you can reach ideal people looking for your product or service. Soulivity Today is a weekly, hour-long program that dives into the heart of what matters most in our lives, the people, places, and topics that shape our world. It's the perfect place for your business to shine. Go to Soulivity.com/Soulivity Today to learn how you can expand your business marketplace by becoming a Soulivity Today radio show sponsor. And for a limited time, special rates are being offered, so don't delay.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Dial 855-486-4553 today. That's 855-486-4553.
As you were speaking as well, and also Dr. Crenshaw, you both kind of reminded us that you're not alone, you're not alone, you're not alone, you're not alone. And so we appreciate Jordan Albright because he reminds us too, as he'll share his story and his journey with Nephcure as well as APOL1, that we're not alone. So Jordan Albright comes to us, and he joined in January of 2023 as a volunteer community leader in Atlanta. His background is extensive in networking, relationships, relationship building from the film and entertainment industry, and his current role as an associate at Rise Property Group, a commercial real estate brokerage firm in Atlanta. We appreciate his journey and his story, which you will hear shortly. That since he's an inspired advocate after both he and his younger brother were diagnosed with APOL1 FSGS, a rare kidney disease, his brother's resilience motivated him to spread awareness and positivity. He again is an Atlanta native with roots from Northern California. He enjoys staying active, DIY projects, water and snow sports, traveling and gardening. Jordan, we thank you. Please share your story.
Thank you so much, Reverend Miles, Montez, Barbara, Dr. Crenshaw for sharing again. And for everyone who does not know, I am Jordan Albright. I was diagnosed with APOL1 FSGS shortly after my younger brother Joshua a few years back. And my brother was actually at my aunt's house messing with the blood pressure machine, and it was throughout the roof. He had to be rushed to the hospital, kept overnight, and from that night on, the rest of our family would just basically have contracts, thinking that every little thing could potentially be leading to us having the same thing. So, of course, all of us went and got our general checkups with our doctors. If you go on the next slide, that'd be great. And yeah, that is when we began to, begin our journey within the kidney disease world. So, it was very off guard, very random. We were very lucky that we caught it when we did, because something we realized that it truly is a silent killer. We had lived our whole entire lives without really realizing what it was happening to us before it was too late. And if you can go on to the next slide, that'd be great. After our diagnosis, a lot changed. I would say mostly within our diets. We were both kind of already trying to be a bit better about it, focusing on making sure we're eating right, getting our minds right, and just understanding that our physical health and everything internally is so important, but understanding that how our mental is so intertwined and connected, that if I lose one thing over the other, that I can ultimately lose both. And if I don't make sure I'm thinking right and making sure we're in a positive mindset, both myself, my brother, and my family, and keeping up in high spirits, that it would ultimately just make us be in a worse position as far as our health overall. So we had to really think about what was important to us, what we had to focus on, our values, our priorities, and having our family structure was so important in supporting one another. And I don't know what I would have done without that situation in place, frankly. I have an amazing family from top to bottom. So really had to lean into each other throughout the whole process. And again, it's kind of deepening and understanding more of how we think about life, our perception of it, and just really fortifying our own mindset of, okay, this is what the situation is. It doesn't need to be a defining factor of our lives. If we just focus on the positive sides of things, we can really get through this with one another. And that's ultimately, what's so important as far as a family. And a few photos here at the bottom there. My brother, me shortly after my diagnosis, and the one far right of my brother at one of his last appointments before he found out he was diagnosed. So a lot of it was happening those few years. Next slide, please. To further piggyback off on the perspective of life just changing, just really having to think about, what we're going to continue to do as far as the next steps in our lives. We could dwell, sit in our emotions, and feel like, it's a death sentence because it was so brand new to us. We had no idea. We're very ignorant to what chronic kidney disease is, let alone APOL1 FSGS. We've been talking about genes and mutations, and it was a lot to take in at once. So we really had to take a step back and talk to one another and think to ourselves about how we're going to proceed throughout our lives. So we had to really, again, lean into one another, try to really focus on growing our own selves and understanding who we are as we go through this together. And yeah, so really changed a lot in those young ages. As far as my younger brother's only 21 now, but he's mature beyond his years. Next slide. And next part of our journey was getting involved in advocating pretty quickly. When my brother was diagnosed, he really, really, really just wanted to get a deeper understanding. He wanted to help spread awareness. It was very, very clear to him, myself, and our whole family that he virtually had no symptoms, neither myself. Of course, after diagnosis, you start thinking back and think everything may have been this or that, but in all reality, we're all human beings. We don't always feel great. But for us, getting involved in advocacy was very helpful for us to, one, kind of vent and talk about our stories, listen to other folks and see what they've been through, and understand that we're not alone. We're not the only people going through this, and there's plenty of organizations that have been doing this sort of work for a very long time that were already established. So my mother finding Nephcure through a Facebook page was a huge blessing for us because it opened up the door to so many resources and really helped us throughout our journey in life. So a few photos there just showing our different advocacy efforts throughout the years and kind of continue to do so. Just again, it really just helps us to understand more, learn more, and continue to be in a community that helps us to grow and understand what it is we're all living with and what our loved ones may be as well. Because as we know, a lot of people just living every single day having no idea what it is, maybe questioning inside of them. Next slide, please. And for the future, I would say that I put a quote in the bottom right corner is that you don't need to see the full staircase. You just got to take that first step, and kind of just keep on moving through. So I don't need to understand what's going to happen, all the way down the line. But as long as I'm taking the right steps in place and trying to understand and learn something new every single day, make sure I'm staying on the right track and just helping to continue to spread awareness and work this with my family. My thought process is the more we just do that and just do things that are true to us, it'll all come in fruition all together. So, and as far as just our lives for vision, we just hope to continue to be healthy, continue to be in a good place because we've been very blessed as far as getting diagnosed and fortunately not being too far along because it was very scary. And I'm saying that we had, hearing chronic kidney disease, stage 2 of this, genetic mutation, it was very scary. So we had to really broaden our thought process for the future because for a long time we really had no idea what we thought. But I can happily say nowadays it's a lot brighter for us now. We're very happy for the future. We're very excited for it. And next slide. And that is it. I appreciate all y'all's time. I would say if anyone had any questions or thought processes on like proceeding forward and thought as to what would do next as far as a call to action, it could be something as small as talking to a friend, family, anyone that may be experiencing something like chronic kidney disease or any other disease like such. Because I talked to a friend and colleagues that I actually would have walked in when I was just messing with my blood pressure machine, seeing what I live was right in the middle of my day, and they take it, try it, and they actually had elevated blood pressure and ended up talking to their doctors and getting on like a plan as to how to maintain their health moving forward. So just having small conversations can lead to so much more large, big results in someone's life. You never know who may be going through something. So again, thank you all so much. And that is all for me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Thank you so much. Before we move forward, we'll close things up and wait before we go into the question and answer period. I first want to say Thank you to Jordan Albright once again for sharing his testimonial and his personal experience. Barbara Harrison for joining our Nephcure family. You're now a cousin, and we're not going to leave you alone. And the great Reverend Miles for everything he has done to push Nephcure ahead, especially when it comes to community engagement and health equity and all the beautiful things that Enon does. Dr. Crenshaw as well for his amazing work at not only my alma mater, Florida State, but also in his whole career and everything he has done to push not only health equity, but also spread the word about APOL1 and how it affects Black Americans. Before we go to question and answer period, I also want to thank Vertex for sponsoring both of our APOL1 town halls, the one we had in April, as well as this one. Vertex has been a beloved partner of ours, and we really thank them for supporting us.
And we'll be back with our Soulivity Today special in just a moment.
Ready to embark on a wine-filled adventure? Go to oldvinewinetours.com and book your luxury wine tour today and experience the unparalleled beauty and flavors of Sonoma, Napa, and Lake counties. oldvinewinetours.com offers transportation for the most amazing experiences in the Sonoma Valley, Santa Rosa, Healdsburg, and all of Sonoma County, as well as the Napa Valley and Clear Lake wineries of Lake County. From boutique tastings to bridal party transportation, we have you covered. Visit oldvinewinetours.com or call 707-386-9859 for more information. Don't forget to mention promo code Soulivity to get 10% off either a culture or wine tour. Book your wine country adventure. Visit oldvinewinetours.com or call 707-386-9859 today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Crenshaw. Thank you much. On that note, I want to thank, first of all of you panelists who contributed to today's success, as well as screening Dr. Crenshaw. Dr. Crenshaw is amazing. If you don't know, he's amazing. And I want to thank you, Dr. Crenshaw, for your contribution to the last few days as we were at the CBC for all the screening you've done. Barbara, thank you for opening my eyes a bit more for genetic counseling as well. So we'll probably have a follow-up conversation because I want to pick your brain more. Reverend Miles, thank you as always for being a great board member here at Nephcure and your continued support and contribution to our steps forward and expanding our health equity in particular. And Jordan, you have been like family to us. So of course, we thank you for everything that you and your family have done for Nephcure and partnering with us in spreading the word. Brian Johnson of Soulivity, thanks for being a partner who continues to broadcast our message and allowing more people to have access to so much of the knowledge that we provide. We could not do it without you, Brian Johnson of Soulivity. Thank you so much. And thank you all, and to all a good night.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted